I want to quote something from your book. It's about the Voting Rights Act. It's under attack even now in 2012. You argue, quote, "That is why it is very important to remain engaged, especially when it is aggravating the vote. The vote is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have to make change in a democratic society, but one vote will not make all the change that is necessary. Change requires patient, persistent action." So tell me, speak now to the young people out there as well as the older people. Why is this issue of voting rights and what you achieved back in 65 important today?
Well, Chris, thank you so much for having me. I truly believe, I really do, in my heart, in my gut, that the vote is the most powerful, nonviolent tool we have in a democratic society, and we must use it. We must use it or we will lose it. It doesn't matter whether you're low income, whether you're middle income, or whether you're a billionaire. We all have one vote, and every single vote must be counted. So it's important that people go out, register, and vote like we never voted before. I think, Chris, there's a deliberate, systematic attempt to win or steal this election before it takes place. With the voter ID, in and early voting, making it almost impossible for young people, for students, for our seniors, for minorities to participate, for the disabled to participate, is a sin. It's obscene to tell people that it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough for you to cast a vote. That's not right. It's not fair, and it's not just.
Mr. Lewis, I hear every word you say, and I'm worried about this. I'm going to talk about at the end of the show. I'm up here in Pennsylvania, which has just passed a law. It's been signed by the Republican governor, passed by a Republican legislature that says you need a government-issued photo ID card. If you don't have one on Election Day this year and you cast a vote, all you get is a provisional vote that doesn't become a real vote unless you within 6 days show up with a government-issued ID card, photo ID card. What are people who want to have everybody vote going to be able to do about these laws that have already been put in the books?
Well, I'm very worried also, Chris. That's why a group of my colleagues, more than 130 members of the Democratic House, have introduced a piece of legislation. It probably will not get passed in this Congress, but we want people to use it, to organize, to mobilize, and when we take back the majority, we will pass a voter act that would improve the Voting Rights Act of 1965. People cannot use an excuse of not having a voter ID. In some communities all across America, churches are providing people with a voter ID. But a voter ID is almost like a poll tax. It's the form of a literacy test, saying to people, like in the state of Texas, even a student ID cannot qualify. But a gun permit ID will qualify. That is obscene.
Well, what happens if this November we get up Wednesday morning, Congressman, and we realize that a state like Pennsylvania has gone for Romney, not because most people wanted Romney over Obama in Pennsylvania, but that most people, or a lot of people, weren't allowed to vote because they live in row houses, they don't own an automobile, like my grandparents were like that. And the neighborhoods are now African-American, the same row houses. These people are older. They're city people. They use the subway. They use mass transportation. They don't own cars. They don't have driver's licenses. And by the way, once you're 75 or 85 years old, you don't want to be driving a car. So the question is, how do they get voter ID cards with a picture on it?
Well, I think right now, not waiting until October or November, but the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, the ACLU, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and different voter groups must go into court and get an injunction against these states, county government for using this form to try to discourage people from participating. To be able to cast a vote should be very simple, like getting a glass of fresh water.
Yeah, I agree with you. Same day registration would be fine with me.